Today I want to reveal my hypocrisy to you. I'm sure this will delight my enemies and the enemies of truth and freedom. But don't be too anxious. When I was taken into perfect final union with God, and God bid me to return to this world, and I sacrificed perfect final union with Him twice, and then made my vow of compassion that I would never again enter into perfect final union with Him until I had seen every last soul in creation home into perfect final union with Him before me. But that I would return to this world and live out the remainder of this life in this ordinary body, in an ordinary life, devoid of all miracles except one. And then at the end of this life, I would enter into the spiritual realm and live in the heart of every soul, guiding every soul home to Him. That was my pledge, my vow, my promise. In answer to these two self-sacrifices and this vow, God made a new covenant with all souls and gave a supreme promise to all souls. That new covenant was and is that whosoever will receive the true enlightenment of my holy initiation and follow me to the end of this life, God will give you what I have sacrificed for the sake of you and all souls. And that is namely and exactly and precisely perfect final union with Him. This is not heaven. This is not hell. This is so far beyond heaven and hell as to have no relevance to them at all. Perfect final union with God is higher above heaven by 1,000,000 trillion times than heaven is above hell. Because perfect final union with God means perfect final union with God. If you think of yourself as being a drop of water and God being the sea, then perfect final union is you as a drop of water entering into that sea and becoming the sea. Not just part of it, but all of it. Not just like it, but it. And so, when a soul enters into perfect final union with God, yes, that soul does lose its personal identity. And if that's so important to you, then heaven is your place. Yeah. Heaven is where you can hang on to your identity. But so long as you hang on to your identity, you will be that silly millimeter separate from God. But perfect final union is where you give up this individual ego and identity and become God. Not that God becomes you. That is the worst of blasphemies. That is the worst of heresies. To think that you could squeeze God down into something as puny and insignificant as your ego is a blasphemy and a heresy that only the greatest fool would engage in. No, it means that you lose yourself and you become totally one with God. And that's perfect final union. And that is the new covenant that God made with all souls because of my self-sacrifices and vow. But you notice I said also that He made a promise, a supreme promise. And that supreme promise is that When there are enough souls on this earth who have received his new covenant through my holy initiation and are following me to the end of their lives, his or her life, according to his instruction, that he will spontaneously and without individual judgment, without individual prejudice, spread his new covenant into the hearts of all souls, in heaven and hell and throughout the earth and throughout all of creation. And every soul will have the opportunity to come home. Or if you talk about it from this side, to go home into perfect final union with him. Now God has made free will one of the highest qualities of the soul. This is the Maitreyan symbol. The thumb stands for free will. The first finger stands for free choice. The middle finger stands for self-determinism. The third finger stands for individual freedom, and the small finger stands for absolute, inescapable personal responsibility. Freedom. Not tyranny. This is tyranny. Reject it. Denounce it. This is freedom. And so every soul will have the opportunity to say, yes, I want to come home into perfect final union with you, or I don't. So where is my hypocrisy? My hypocrisy is an essential hypocrisy. It's a necessary hypocrisy. You know, every time that I start to preach, some poor fool will come up and will say, well, can you walk on water? Now, this poor fool has never seen anyone walk on water in his life. Did Jesus walk on water? I don't know, and neither does he. Neither do you. It says so in the book. We don't even know who wrote the book. You can have faith, and we can respect your faith, and we do. But you don't know. No. Oh, you say, yes, I do know, I do know. No, what you mean is, I have faith, I have faith. And then they will say, well, can you heal the sick? Can you raise the dead? And I say no. If it were only that easy, if it were only as easy as walking on water and healing the sick and raising the dead, we would be there already. No. You see, I don't have any special powers. I don't have any of these mundane miracles. After all, what is going to happen if you walk on water? Will the world change if you walk on water? Will the water change if you walk on water? What will happen if you heal the sick and you raise the dead? I guarantee you that every person, and I love Jesus, he's my brother, as is Buddha, Muhammad, Rama, Krishna, Abraham, and Moses. They're all my brothers in spirit. I've received all of their baptisms and their blessings. We are one in spirit. But I ask you, where are the people that Jesus is supposed to have healed? Where are the people that Jesus is supposed to have raised from the dead? Are they not dead?
Yes.
And it's not death, a sickness. So the people who were healed became sick and died. And the people who were raised from the dead also died. They're all dead. So I have no mundane miracle of that kind to give to you. If you want circus stuff, go to church. If you want circus stuff, go to your local evangelistic charlatan. Get the slap on the forehead. I'm a doctor of clinical hypnosis. It's hypnosis. It's gimmickry. Take my word for it. I don't do it. I won't do it. And so I am a hypocrite because I have to say to you, do as I say, not as I do. Because I'm an ordinary man. I came back here under the pledge of being an ordinary man. I only bring one thing that's extraordinary. And that is God's new covenant and supreme promise. Don't come to me and say, heal me. I can't heal you. Even Jesus said, physician, heal thyself. So I don't have those kinds of miracles, those mundane miracles. I have the greatest miracle that there is. Let's face it, if a man is healed, he's going to get sick again and he's going to die. If a man is raised from the dead, he's eventually going to die. And when he dies, or when she dies, he's going to come around again to be born into this world again, to suffer and sorrow and live in agony and misery and to know death and to know the agony and the misery of the deaths of the people that he loves. You can't escape it. It's the nature of this world. Don't ask me why it's that way. I am an ordinary man. I didn't come to bring you a new philosophy or a new theology or even a new methodology. I have brought you the methodology that I know. And I tell you what I know of God from first-hand experience, and you can call that theology if you wish, but I didn't come for that. I only came back here for one reason, and that is to give God's new covenant and supreme promise to all souls, and to get all souls home into perfect final union with God. For you see, when we fulfill God's supreme promise, all souls will be liberated. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to wait for all souls to be liberated, for you to be liberated. But it does mean that if you have a conscience, if you have a spirit, if you have a goodness about you, that when you receive this new covenant for yourself, you will go out and do all that you can, the very best you can, to deliver it to others and bring them into this holy community that I've returned here to begin. Why a holy community? Because chaos cannot carry anything forward. It requires some form of organization to preserve things and to carry them forward. Oh, yes. There are downsides to it. Wherever there's organization, there's certainly going to be regimentation eventually. And there's going to be bigotry. But without it, we have nothing but anarchy and chaos, and it blows away in the wind. Just like dust in the wind. And so we have to have a community, a sangha. But I didn't come back here to do any of these other things that these people talk about, that challenge me. Can you walk on water? Can you heal the sick? Can you raise the dead? No, I can't. And if I could, I wouldn't. Because it's a distraction. What I can do is I can give you what I won from God. I can give you the new covenant that my own self-sacrifices and vow won from God. I can give you the supreme promise that my own self-sacrifices and vow won from God. But if you come to me expecting me to be extraordinary in any way whatsoever other than that, you'll leave. So many people have come to this beautiful sanctuary. Where are they? Do you see them? I don't see them. This is Los Angeles. This is the city of smoke and mirrors. unless you can astound people, unless you can mystify people, unless you can fool people, very few will follow you. But if you can do that, you'll fill the auditoriums with tens of thousands of people. I can't do that. So here is my hypocrisy. You must do as I say, not as I do. I'm an ordinary man. Do I curse when I'm on the freeway and I get frustrated? Yes, I do. I'm an ordinary man. Should you do that? No, you shouldn't. If you can help it. Neither should I, if I can help it. And when I can help it, I don't. Are you always going to be perfect in your love and your compassion for people? Are you always going to be free of prejudice and bigotry? And I'm not just talking about white people here. There's a movement sweeping across the southernmost part of this nation where groups of blacks, young blacks, are using this Trevor Martin catastrophe as an excuse to go and beat up white people. Do you know what's going to come next, don't you? Don't you know what's going to come next? Eventually they're going to go too far, and those white people, that 72% of the population of this country, are going to rise up. And instead of there being 12% of black people left in this country, there'll be 2. Take my word for it. It's coming if it goes on. The black community must stop their children from doing this, because they're cutting loose a monster that they don't understand. It's like the Japanese admiral when they launched the attack on Pearl Harbor is quoted to have saying, "I am afraid that we've awakened a sleeping giant." And that's what's about to happen in this country. If the black community continues to allow their children to be motivated by bigots and tyrants to going out and wreaking havoc upon the white population. The sleeping giant is awakening, and it's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to be short, and it's not going to be bloodless, believe me. We don't want that. We don't need that. So, we're not going to be perfect. Yes, we're going to be prejudiced. We're all going to be prejudiced. The black person is prejudiced in favor of black people. Maybe not against white people, but in favor of black people. The white person is prejudiced in favor of white people. Maybe not against black people, but in favor of white people. And the same with the yellow person, the red man, everyone. Because these are the things that we know the best. These are the things we identify with. We are weak. We are human. We can try to overcome these things. But we can't be perfect. Any more than I can be perfect. But I can tell you to try to be perfect. But I will only hold you to one standard. It's the same standard that I hold myself to as an ordinary man. And that is that you will do all that you can, the very best that you can, in all that you do, to try and live a good life, to try and follow me, and as God has ordained, to try and understand the religion that I bring to you, God's eternal universal religion, the holy Adhyatma Yoga Dharma, if you want to put it in Eastern language. And so this is my hypocrisy. I can't live up to everything that I preach. Now you can say Jesus did. You can say Buddha did. But did he? Buddha preached not eating meat, but he died from eating bad meat. Why? Because he did not want to offend his host who offered him meat. He may have been poisoned on purpose. They tried to assassinate him many times. And so, you see, I can't give you a perfect example. I can only tell you to be perfect insofar as you are able. To do all that you can, the very best that you can in all that you do. And if people say, that's hypocrisy, he says, do as I say, not as I do, then they're right. They're right. Because I came back here not as a special man, not as a saint, not as a prophet, not as a guru. I came back here as an ordinary man, bearing the most extraordinary gift of all, God's new covenant and supreme promise. I can't give you anything but that. You've heard this song, I can't give you anything but love. Well, I can't give you anything but God's new covenant and supreme promise. Oh, I can tell you the method I used to achieve perfect final union with God. It's written in this holy book of ours called the Holy Book of Destiny. You can even buy it on Amazon. You should buy it on Amazon. You should read it. Because I put in there my failings as well as my successes. I'm not lying to anyone here. I'm not trying to say, I'm perfect, you should follow my example. If I am perfect in any way, and if you should follow any example at all, it's that you should be honest about your own imperfections. And perhaps that's the greatest honesty of them all. See, we don't have to be perfect. If God intended us to be perfect by earthly standards, He would have made us perfect. What He did, you hear people on television, you hear the televangelist with dollar signs in their eyes saying, God has a plan for you. And you know that plan, at least in part, is that you put your hand in your pocket and give. Well, I say God has a plan for you too. But I tell you the truth. The plan that God has for you is freedom. This fivefold freedom: free will, free choice, self-determinism, individual freedom, and absolute, inescapable personal responsibility. That's God's plan for you, is freedom. And now that I've won this new covenant and supreme promise from God, God's plan for you also is that you'll receive it with a good heart, with a sincere heart, and that you will do all you can, the very best you can, to fulfill it according to His instruction. That you will receive my holy initiation and follow me to the end of this life. That you will be honest about your imperfections. That you will tell the truth and quit trying to put forth this facade of perfection. So, you see, my hypocrisy is also my perfection. You must do as I say, not as I do. Because I don't always do right. But I always tell you the truth. And I always say right. And I know you can't do it all the time any more than I can. But try. The principle that we have, the principle that I teach, is to always try to make your reach exceed your grasp. You can't climb any higher on the ladder unless you let go of the rung that you're on and reach up for the next. So yes, call it hypocrisy if you will. It's the most honest and sincere hypocrisy you will ever hear. You won't hear it from the televangelist that's standing before 10,000 people. You won't hear it from the pastor of your church. I remember years ago, we went to a seminar. It was a tax seminar having to do with churches. I don't know how I ended up there. But one pastor told this heart-rending story of how he loved music. And he was paid a pittance, but he saved and he saved and he saved, and he finally got enough money to get this stereo system put in his car. And he had to have it put in the trunk of his car, because if any of his congregants had seen it, they would have accused him of wasting their money. What a tragedy. I'd have put it right up front with boom boxes on all sides. I myself, in the early days, had a man come. His name eventually became Ananda. This man would put $1 every week in the begging bowl. $1. And one day, I used to eat breakfast, small breakfast. I think it was $1.25 breakfast at the time, at a little place down in Redondo Beach. And he walked in and he pitched a fit because I was using his money to feed my body. Well, we had a settling right there. Even though spiritually I am one with all people, in this body I'm Scottish, Irish, Bohemian, and Italian. But we had a settling, believe me. And he kept putting his dollar in. Never more, never less. He said I was a hypocrite because I took this money to feed myself. I said, what am I supposed to feed myself with? He had a religious, his parents ran a religious articles shop in Chicago. I said, what did your parents feed themselves with? Didn't they charge money for articles that were related to God? And didn't they feed you from the money and the proceeds that came from this business? That's different. No, it's not different. So I am ordinary. I can't walk on water. I don't heal the sick. And I've only raised a person from the dead once, and that was to satisfy my poor mother, and I would never do it again. It was wrong. It was my brother. He lived 3 more months and then he died anyway. Of drug addiction. So if you want to call me a hypocrite, call me a hypocrite. But be sure that you are looking in the mirror of your own life when you do. There's an old saying that people who live in glass houses should not throw stones. Make sure that your house is not made of glass before you throw stones at me. Because I don't claim any of these things. I don't claim any of these things. All I claim is what is true. All I claim is what I did, what I've done, and what I've won for you and for all souls. And that if you receive it, and you fulfill it, and you help me to fulfill God's supreme promise along the way, because that's part of fulfilling it, you see, that you will have perfect final union with God at the end of your life. And that's all I have for you. So when you come here, don't come to your fancy lectures. Don't come to your fancy talks. Come to receive true enlightenment. And don't think that you're going to come and look under my hood and kick my tires and crawl underneath to inspect every last aspect of who I am and what I teach. If you want true enlightenment, come for true enlightenment. Don't ask anything about it. Not because it's a secret. It's not a secret. It's all in this book. It's called the Holy Book of Destiny. Maitreya, the friend of all souls, is the name that it's under. You can buy it on Amazon for a stinking little $12. If you're really a cheapskate, you don't want to do that, then there's this little book. It's called Destiny. It's a replica of a metal book that I produced that is in the American History Rare Books collection of the Smithsonian Institute. This is not metal, it's paper, but it's the same text. Write to me. Tell me that you don't want to spend $12. I'll send you one of these. It's not as complete as that, but it's the essence. But you see, it's not what's in these books that's important. It's what's in my heart. It's what God has given to you through me. It's God's new covenant and supreme promise that are important. If you want it, come and get it. Don't play games with me. I don't play games. I have nothing to lose. I've given up everything. I've given up perfect final union with God twice. And I've given up my place in line, going home into perfect final union with God, and placed myself at the end of the line of all souls going home into perfect final union with God, so that you will be guaranteed a place. I have nothing to lose. So don't play games with me. If you want it, come and get it. If you don't want it, then I'm sorry for you. Because you will continue to ride the endless wheel of birth, life, suffering, sickness, fear, pain, sorrow, old age, death, and rebirth again and again and again. 1 billion times 1 billion until you finally attain perfect final union with God. Oh yes, you'll go through hell and you'll go through heaven. And you'll go through hell and you'll go through heaven. And you'll go through hell and you'll go through heaven. But you will not be free until you attain perfect final union with God. So I ask you to do as I say. As much as you can, the very best that you can, in all that you do. And where I fall short of your demands, you're just going to have to put up with it. Because I came back here as an ordinary man, not as a Superman. If you want a Superman, go to the movies. If you want God's new covenant and supreme promise, come here and receive it. If you can't come here, then call. If you can't call, then email. We will get it to you one way or another. Om Soham Tetramasi. Om. You and I are one with the one universal God of all creation and no other. Jai Bhagavanji. Victory to God the beloved, that beloved universal I am that I am, which you are.
Jai Bhagavanji.
All victory and glory to God the beloved.
All victory and glory to God the beloved.
Jai Bhagavanji.